Good morning. So I'm going to try to be much more diligent about doing these videos because um, I have a few people that are always like, how come you don't do the videos anymore? Mainly because I have a bad habit of not getting my work done because I'll put my fork down to demonstrate something, and next thing you know, I'm just standing talking at the camera. And I can't do that. So I have to try to figure out a way to think that I'm just standing here talking to myself while I work and not pay attention to there's a camera there to talk to. Okay. So this morning, I realized that there are things that we do with our horses that we don't realize we're not properly educating. Because I always tell people I feel bad that so many horses spend their lives guessing and then guessing that they got the right answer because there was no punishment or what they wanted occurred. So here's my example. But by guessing is what I mean is that they don't actually know the definition of the request. They don't actually know the definition of what you want from them. They just kind of did what you wanted and it worked out, and you think they know it and they don't actually. So Dewey, my little baby, he sometimes gets himself all chested up to something. So he tends to like raise his head up and get himself all chested up to like the gate or all pretty much the gate. Sometimes me, like if I'm putting his halter on, he thinks he has to get closer. So he'll lift his head up and kind of get closer with his chest. That's what I mean by he chests up to things. Like he puts his head up and like say, here's a gate. He'll chest up to the gate. So he does that in the morning when it's time to feed. And he'll get chested up to the gate as I'm coming with the food, and I need him, because he's got a ground pan, so I need him to back away so that I can bend down in front of him. So he has to back away from the gate, and then he has to back away from my dispensing his food, right? So I'll tell him, back. He knows what back means because it's been taught to him. However, in that particular case, that is an example of I use a word that means something and could be applicable in many different situations. But where it's being used, how it's being used, and how it's being rewarded is not being done in an educational way. He's not learning the word back. He's learning the routine of, before I get fed, I have to back away from this gate. That's what he's learning. So we could potentially walk away from that thinking the horse knows what back means. And then when we ask him to back up in another situation, they don't know what we want. And depending on your patience levels, you could end up getting mad because your belief would be is you already know this. You're just being stubborn. You're just being belligerent. You already know what back means. We do this every morning. Yeah, you do it every morning as part of a routine. He's not responding to the word back. And if the reward is just that you'll give him his food and leave, it's still just part of your morning routine. It's part of a routine. It's not an education. You're educating him to the routine, yes. So yes, there is an education. But you are not educating him to the word back. So how can you fix that? Well, you could ask him to back away from the gate and then invite him to come close again, and then ask him to back away from the gate, rub him, reach out, acknowledge him, let him know that that was what he properly responded to. And then at the end, as if it's the end of the session, you give him his food. Now, I know everybody's like, I don't have time for that. Well, it's something you're going to want him to understand at another point, right? It's a word you're going to want him to properly respond to at another point. Why do you have time to be mad at him? Why do you have time to possibly get into that confusion wrestling match of, this horse kind of thing, when you could just take the time in your morning routine and properly educate him to the word back, as opposed to educating him to the routine of back away so I can feed you. There is a huge difference. And it was kind of cool that I actually recognized that, he does know the word back, but I recognize that that's just part of our routine. That's not him backing up because I said the word back. That's him backing up to the routine of, you have to move so I can feed you. So I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was kind of cool to touch on that. Because I think that's part of why we get into trouble with our horses, thinking that our horses know things that they don't know. And then I also think that's part of why horses struggle with, trying to guess what we want. That goes right back to that. I have a real hang up about people who ask a horse to do things via cluck. You cluck for, come here, horsey. Or, I hate the noise cluck, so I don't do it. But, you go to call the horse to you. You go to tell the horse to go away from you. You to tell the horse to go sideways. To tell the horse to back up. And then the day that you need him to know which one that is, he doesn't. Because he's been guessing all along. If all you do is use your cluck as like movement noise, I suppose. I did ask somebody one day and she said, well, no, I cluck for movement. Well, here's where I always go back to, but if you cluck for movement and the movement you want is forward into a trailer, but the movement can also be backward. If a cluck can also mean backward movement, what movement is your horse going to choose if he doesn't want to get in a trailer? But you keep clucking, and he's going to be like, well, it means back up too. It just means movement. Where if I say I always cluck for forward and I always cluck for how fast I want you to go, my clucks, which I don't cluck a kiss, always tell them exactly what I want. It's an exact order. It's not a, I'd like a burger. Where then now the person, has to ask you, well, do you want cheese on that? Do you want, right? Like I have a very exact order. I want a burger with cheese and, ketchup and whatever. Like you can give an exact order or you can give a vague order. I want my horses to always be given the information. Always provide your horse with the information. So anyway, went a little bit on a different thing, but it's always been my thing. I try to tell people all the time that, you don't cluck for everything unless you don't want them to understand anything.